Arafoye mama akwaba ediba Ghanatube so mo number 1 channel and news koso any de eba e wo man mu ne call ne kohwehwe mu na e asone so papa no e de abremu na mu hu na mo so matensem ekoso e wo man mu na emum no osem ni bo ho na sekese ebeto adwasa na na emu eyedu se ya betina se ne aka de enzi ye pende e tekem se mo beko akotie sa ensem no mu entwem eye pa na se ye ba e bi soso ara se bi ka ho na e de aka ho e de yama yahwefo nti yenkwen yenkotie ensem ekoso ni de eba o man mu edika.
We've got details for you. Lawyers for the embattled former National Signals Bureau Director tonight. Lawyers for embattled former National Signals Bureau Director General, that's I'm talking about the man Kwabena Boahen, saying that they remain unfazed by the volumes of documents submitted by the Attorney General ahead of the trial. Now, we're going to bring you an update on this and what happened in court earlier today, because the lawyer for the former National Signals Bureau Director, his wife and 2 others, Samuel Atachia, has noted that he is unperturbed, really, by the voluminous nature of disclosures filed by the Attorney General in the criminal case against his clients. Earlier, Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Shemsai submitted 85 documentary evidence to support charges against the accused persons, and we're getting information that there could be more in the coming days. 85 is just the initial that we do know, but let's get a bit more into it right now. We're going to hear from Samuel Atachia shortly. He spoke to journalists after the court hearing today. Dennis Poberi Wadam Esquire is with me in the studio. Let's go to our view, as always.
I have a pleasure to be here.
Before we set the ball rolling into what we do know as some of the details of these 85 documents that the Attorney General has filed in this case, let's hear from Samuel Atachia, who spoke to journalists after the court hearing earlier today. Take a look.
It's not how much you file, but the quality of what you file. And whether what you file will incriminate the accused person. That's what's critical. You can file to all manner of documents. And whether they are incriminatory in nature, it's what the court will have to assess.
So Dennis, that's the position of someone like that. It's not so much about how much you file; it's about the quality of your document, the evidence that you produce.
Precisely so. This is evidence we're talking about. When it comes to evidence, it's quality over quantity. But of course, the mention of 85 documents is not quite surprising if you follow the terrain that you have been on this particular show, especially trying to indicate what we've been picking as those who are going to be the witnesses and the kind of things they are going to testify about. And because this is more of a financial transaction as well, you would expect that quite a number of the transactions will be backed by some documentary evidence of some sort. Yeah. And even when we looked at the areas of the testimony of the witnesses or the witness statements that have been filed so far, or the witnesses who will be coming, some of them will also be tendering in some documents in respect of that. And to also think that there are 4 accused persons, when you put all the documents together, I think the 84 should even be small.
It's smaller.
Yes, because when you look at some of the things, even before you even go, the caution statements and the charge sheets alone of the 4 people alone constitutes a lot. So just do like 2 by 4, already we are talking about 8. Absolutely. Now when you look at the lead investigator, who is basically testifying in respect of all the transactions that happened at the offices of the former, the office of the former director for the National Signals Bureau, and even the contract that they had with that company, which is now become a matter of this dispute. Also, how there were instructions given to some persons to transfer monies and all that. And some of these people say that they have documents to those effects. Even the driver who is coming in to testify says that he has some receipts to show.
And for any 84 and some I also any the eba a woman and I was so a good so our witty and much pants a witty no so I went to where our faster and 7 now with a fair Eddie and mammy our comment session hall young queen to us.
Do and all that. I mean, there's quite a lot to look at. So I am not surprised that they're talking about 85 documents in respect of evidence before the court. But just to let you know, like it's been indicated, there could be more than this. This is just the beginning. But the good news is that as part of the documents that have been filed before the court, this is the part we call a disclosure. That's to say, let prosecution give the defense what they are going to use to prosecute their case. This should not only be what they should use to make their case. If there are other documents that will help the defense to also show that they are not guilty, prosecution is under obligation to make those documents available. In other words, it is the duty of the prosecution to help, if evidence exists, the defense to prove its innocence. And I'm using prove innocence loosely because in criminal matters, it is prosecution that proves its case. For defense, they only raise doubts when it comes to that.
I mean,
so in essence, 85 documents, it's a good beginning.
The jurisprudence for criminal disclosures, we are growing into it, because as you're saying it this way, somebody is watching and saying, why should I be?
Let's not do jurisprudence tonight.
Relax. We know what we are talking about.
Yes, so like I was just mentioning, just so we refresh ourselves.
Yeah.
You have the former director of finance. I mean, this is somebody who has been at the National Signals Bureau, worked within that security setup for 18 years. This is somebody who is coming to testify in this particular matter. And then the areas of testimony we understand will be the financial operations of that National Signals Bureau between 2017 and 2020 and even beyond. We are looking at bank accounts, we are looking at who signatories are, we are looking at sources of funding, deposits and transfers. So all of those things need to be justified by way of documentary evidence or documents. They're also talking about transfers and deposits into bank accounts. Some of them we believed at the time she was depositing, she believed there were accounts belonging to the Bureau. Then also matters that relate to some facilitations that were made by the third accused person, who is Mildred Donko, former banker with the UMB Bank. All those matters also come in respect of her testimony.
Right.
Now with the driver, who described himself as the errand assistant, and also, errand assistant to the accused persons, he also says that, okay, he'll be testifying in matters that have to do with some withdrawals of monies and deposits of monies at UMB and Stanbic Bank, at some instances giving the money to the first accused person, who is Kobina Edu Boahen, and other instances giving it to Mildred Donko. All of those things form part of the documents that we are talking about, including sealed checks that were given. He says that he will give some receipts anytime some monies were deposited or withdrawn from the account. Then comes the lead investigator himself, the staff officer at the IOCO, who literally is the man who has been looking into this matter right from the word go and still providing. He will testify in respect of all the money that is involved, the 49.1 million Ghana cedis, which is said to have been diverted into 3 separate accounts, including the contracts, how much was paid, what were the terms of the contract, and all that. All that will be contained in as part of the documents that will be needed for this particular matter. So, Alfred, it's quite a lot, but the case is just taking shape, and the next agenda date will be for case management to continue. That is to say, let's sort out the documents that are that are with prosecution. Make sure everybody has, defense should have it, the court should have it, and then also for defense to also file their witness statements. So gradually the case is shaping up. Before long, prosecution will begin putting its witnesses in the box, and then cross-examination will begin. And that's where you test the mettle of the testimonies that are going to come in, as to whether they are credible or not, as to whether they'll help prosecution make their case or not. That is a matter to be determined in the coming days.
And you see this going the long haul. We're not seeing the end of this matter anytime soon, are we?
Not at all. But there was also another issue that came up, and that is in respect of some asset declaration matters. Absolutely.
We're reading today that in court, one of the developments is that the prosecution has asked the court for permission to supplement these documents with additional disclosures on the letter requesting information on Edu Boahen's asset declaration.
Yes.
So if it turns out that he hasn't declared his assets, or he did not declare his assets when he was Director General of National Signals Bureau, then what next?
So ordinarily, when it comes to matters of declaration of assets, that is a matter that is usually dealt by SURAJ. That's the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. However, when you look at the charges that have been preferred against these persons, you can understand where prosecution is coming from. Because part of the charges have to do with money laundering. That's basically saying that there is some money which is proceeds of crime that have been used for something else.
Yeah.
And you also recall that as part of the facts that the prosecution has presented, they listed quite a number of properties which they say were acquired with proceeds of crime. So now if prosecution is asking that they want to get the asset declaration otherwise of the former National Signals Bureau. They are only trying to reconcile that indeed at the time that he was in office, were these properties his or not, because that would be a point to, but the essence of it is that it will only help prosecution's case if they're able to get that done. However, if they want to treat it as a non-compliance with the constitutional provision of declaration of assets, this is where it takes us to. So when you look at Article 287, talks about complaints of contravention, and that contravention talks about failure to declare your assets. And one says that an allegation that a public officer has contravened or has not complied with the provision of this chapter shall be made to the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and in the case of the Commissioner of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, to the Chief Justice, who shall, unless the person concerned makes a written admission of the contravention or non-compliance, cause the matter to be investigated. Now it goes to say that the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, or the Chief Justice, as the case may be, may make or may take such actions as considers appropriate in respect of the results of the investigation or the admission. So, like I said, if they are treating this as purely a matter that has to do with asset declaration, that will come under a purview of SUBCRIBE, where a complaint has to be made for such a matter to be looked at. Right. However, from where this is coming, the understanding is that they want it to form a body of the evidence that they will need to prosecute this particular case.
So it's going to take a different route.
Exactly.
I appreciate this legal understanding that you bring to it, as always, much of it, so that we all follow, we laymen follow every step of the way. Leonard man.
Leonard Okansi.
Thank you so much, as always.
Most welcome, Alfred.
For coming through. And Dennis Kwabere and I'm Esquire there. You're also live here on Ghana Tonight. And this is one that we keep an eye on, because from what we're learning, this particular case, again, has been adjourned. And our colleague, legal affairs correspondent, that is Lord Edward Sari, is going to be following this case every step of the way to give us all the details and updates that we need, so that you can also follow it every step of the way, and how this is also going to be playing out in the court of law. So stay with us here on Ghana Tonight, but this is one that we'll keep an eye on. So the adjourned date, from what we do know, is June 26th at 2 p.m. Between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., June 26th. This case will be called again. But coming up next here on Ghana Tonight,
same I also need the edika ewo manimeno, and I just say was so egusu awiti me share pa say obeja comment fefe and the mama our comment section ho, but you can say ha Ghanatube so him tena say say me ko share e dey ebrem e ye ho chia me show and na ye frame sisi ade mako.